Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. First of all, really sorry for this huge delay. There has been so much going on in my life, so I was not able to record the videos properly. But now I'm back, and now I'm hopeful that we will be continuing to uh, release more videos of our series that we started. So in this video, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna start a project which we plan to do, and this is going to be a very basic, but the first step towards our multi-platform journey. And in this video, we will be creating a notes app, which will basically help us understand how the basic compose work and how we can create some of the basic functionality, set up some very basic things. So what we are going to develop, the first thing is that I'm going to show you over here. So this is basically the app that we are planning to do. The first one is basically an empty screen showing you an empty screen with a um, uh, floating action bar that basically, and you can add some sort of details into this, and every card will be shown something like this along with the text that you want to add as a title. And the next step of this would be to implement the room database for this. But for the first video, we are going to do something in memory. We will not be implementing any database in the first video. The next video, or the next part of this video, we will cover that, implementing the room database and taking all this implementation into room. And the third might be something, doing something with Firebase, or maybe some server side implementation for this, so that it's basically accessible remotely as well. So yeah, that's basically something that we needed to do. Now I'm not gonna waste your time anymore, and we'll straight away start working on implementing the code. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is that basically we will create a Kotlin multi-platform project. Okay, fine. Let's call that quicker notes, some name that we can use for our app, for our project. Next, and you can define what kind of stuff you need. I'll be implementing it for only Android and iOS, so let's just do that. And once you do that, you will see something like this. Okay, now it will build for a while, and meanwhile it's building, I'll show you something, and that is basically material theme builder. This is basically more you can definitely cover the more details of this, of how basically things will look and how stuff you want for that. But what I did is basically I took a screenshot of the from the Figma, and then uploaded over here, and it just gave me some of the basic stuff that it can have. And you can definitely test it on both light and dark mode and define the contrast that you want for that. But the thing is that even without that, if you want, you can just ask your designer to give you those colors, like primary color, secondary and ternary, and then you can update them, and based on that it will basically create a theme for you. And once you basically create that, the next thing is to select a theme or a font for that. You can use some of the system default for that. I'm gonna use system default for that. And after that, all you need to do is that you can just go and export it based on how you want. So I'm gonna use the Compose based, so I'll just basically export that, and it will basically be the one that will give me the UI part of that. So I'll show you how I'm gonna use that. But meanwhile, we'll basically wait for this to build. So okay, so now the first project is set up, and over here you will see so many things, but what we want to do, we need to go to our, is that, it's the common main. Okay, so in the common main section, when you go over here, you see all these things. This is basically the starting point of your project. Okay, there seems to be some problem with the Mac OS and some other stuff, but I think we can live without that. Okay, so the first thing over here you see is this basically section, which is a very basic, preview that we have, and also some of the basic stuff. So the first thing I'm gonna do over here is that I'm gonna get rid of every single thing that's there, even the material theme as well. We don't need that. Okay. Now, why I did that is because we want to do stuff from the very beginning. Okay, just one thing to make sure, and that is in a Compose multi-platform app, this is the starting point. Okay, this is basically something where the app basically start rendering stuff for you. Okay, so this is basically the starting point. Okay, second thing is this greeting section. I don't need that. I'm just gonna get rid of that. That's it. Same goes for the platform. We are not gonna use that, but for now let's just keep it this way. Okay, now that's done. Okay, now over here, the first thing, like I mentioned, is that I want some sort of theme, or like the colors that I basically exported from there. So over here, what I'm gonna do, that I'm gonna create a package, and let's call that UI. Okay, and now I'm gonna go and download, sorry, like copy the theme that I basically got from there. So I'm just gonna Control C and paste it over here. Now one thing, when you paste it over here, you will see that there will be some problems, some of the issues with the package. You can change the package name so that it's basically relevant. One more thing that you will find, and that will be most probably when it's basically going to select the colors for the project, over there you will see some sort of error, especially in the theme sections. Okay, so I'm just gonna change that to this. Now over here you will see that it's basically like looking for some sort of uh, Android based stuff. We don't need that. Okay, so I'm just gonna get rid of all those Android related stuff that's there. These are just two different schemes. One is the light scheme for light colors, one is the dark scheme for dark colors, and then we have this medium contrast colors and high contrast colors. It totally depends on what kind of contrast you want for your system. Okay, uh, now the next thing, like I mentioned, we just cannot use this. Even if we can get rid of that, and also the dynamic colors are not required because we don't have any dynamic colors in iOS. Okay, now we will be working with just dark scheme and light scheme, and then the app typography is also something we need to fix. So you can just get over here and change that. Right now we don't have anything for the typography. We'll just keep it the way it is. Now this is basically called as material theme, and this is basically the app theme. So I'm gonna change it to maybe quick notes app theme. Okay, that is my first theme that I'm gonna use. Will pass, basically it checks whether the system is basically in dark mode or in light mode. If it's in dark mode, it will check or like take the dark colors, else it will take the light colors. Okay, now how I'm gonna use this, I'll basically get over here in the app, and I'll make sure the first thing in my app section is basically this section. This composable is basically used at the first thing. Okay, so that is the first thing. The second thing in our composable is basically that I want some sort of a view for my screen, or like a some sort of a screen to draw. So for that we are gonna use scaffold. Scaffold is something that basically helps with a lot of stuff. For now I'm not gonna explain more of it. We'll just basically take it as a screen that we want to draw on. It gives some sort of flexibility to us to handle the spacing from the top and bottom and all that, and also it helps with drawing the floating action and all that. Like it handles all that on its own. So we'll be using scaffold for that, and along with the scaffold, the first thing that I'm gonna do, I believe, let's just use a column. Okay, and this column is going to be set up this way as padding, and I'm going to add IT to this. Okay, these are some very basic thing. I'll explain what is scaffold is again. Like I said, if let me just refresh this rendering issue, and you will see it will basically draw a screen. So this scaffold created this screen for me, and this column is basically a container that basically draws stuff in vertical mode. Like if I want to draw something in a vertical mode, for one thing on top, and then next and bottom, the third item goes in the bottom and all that. So that will basically be the functionality of a column. If we go to our design, you will see that we have the first section like this, basically a title. We have some information, and then we have some empty spacing, and then you have this notes that basically is there, like the very basic empty screen or drawable that we have. Then we have some text that also a column mode, and then in the bottom we have this. So basically for now we'll basically try to use something as this. We can use box for that as well, but we'll basically try to implement it later on. And this is also like a column section, so you can see the first item is there and then bottom and all that. Okay, but that's not the target that we want to do over here. The first thing that I want over here is that basically I want to create a floating action button, right? And like I said, the scaffold helped me with handling the basically top bar, bottom bar, and all that. But I am just using a floating action button, so you can define that like this, right? And now we have a floating action button that you can draw. You have basically some of the default floating action button, okay, and that you can use, and it requires some sort of on click functionality, and along with that you can also add something like this. So so once you do that, let me just import that composable text. You can see that basically it uses a floating action button and also a text, oh sorry, a sign of that for us as well. And you can also like increase the size, so you can say font size and define like maybe you can use 18 sp, okay, which basically increase the size, right? Second thing that I want over here is basically the shape basically of the floating action button. We have a round corner shape, or we have a circular shape. Over here we have a round, so we need to change that. And for that you have a property that is called shape. You can define that as circle shape, and you will see that it will be converted into a circle. And that's pretty much what we wanted as a starting point for our app. Right now over here, this specific the first screen will have multiple things. First one is going to be an empty screen when there will be no nodes, so we'll be showing some sort of an empty view for the user. Second one is going to be more like a view for where basically we list down all the elements. So like I said, we have like different kind of screens to manage. So for that, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create a new composable, okay, and we'll call that function empty view, okay. And this is going to be an empty view. What it has to do, it's basically going to create a box. Perhaps let's use a box. And in the modifier section, modifier are basically the properties that you want to set on the specific composable or a view item. So for that we're going to use the modifier, and then over here you can define the properties. The first thing is that I want to cover the whole size, like whatever is available, like fill max size for that. And the second one is going to be to create a column, okay, and this column is going to be like to be aligned in the center. So that is something I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say modifier dot fill max width. I'm not gonna use height, because if I use height it will cover everything, so only width. And along with that I'll use alignment. So basically this align is a property that is available only inside a box. Like if you use this align inside a column or anything else, you might not find that. So that is important. If your parent composable is box, you can use align for that. So over here I'm going to use alignment dot center. If you use center, it will make sure that it basically center stuff horizontally and vertically both. And now over here I'm going to use an image, which is going to be a painter resource basically. And now over here what we need is basically we need res dot drawable dot the image that we want to place. And along with that it basically needs a content description for us. So you can define a content description. If not, you can just get rid of that error with using a null for this. And what else? Let me just slightly shrink that. Okay, next thing is basically using that text again, and rather than using this we will be using no notes yet, or perhaps it says create your first note. So I'm gonna use that, okay. And now over here, this empty will be added over here. And when you do that, you will see that basically it does some stuff like this. It basically, the image is too big. We need to make sure that it's not that big. So I'm going to use a modifier again for this to reduce the size of this, is equals to modifier dot size, and we'll be using 120.dp for this. So let's say if I use something like this, it will make sure that it's basically reduce that. And also the font size should also be 16.sp, so it's reduced. I think 200 should be more than enough. Yeah, this makes sense. Okay. And now, like I said, if I get rid of that, you will see that it will basically aligns everything in the center. Now we have something like this. We need to change that icon with the one that we have in the app. But other than that, I think we are good. One more thing we need over here is basically a title that is going to be on top. So that's something like this. We also need font size to be at least 30.sp for that, because that's quite a big size in terms of notes. It's quite big. Now I think let's just use 16 perhaps. That will give us some spacing. Perfect, right? So this is basically the first screen that we have, and now we'll try to run this. But before running it, what I need this image. So basically get that image. Is basically a PNG that I can use. So I'll just export that image, and then go over here and use that image. Okay, I've got that image now. And I'm gonna get over here into the resource and place it over here in the resource sections. It's a PNG, so we'll just use that. And now over here, rather than using this, I'm gonna use drawable dot Rafiki. Okay, so what you need to do is that you need to convert it to package over here, and then inside that you can just place it over here like this. And now you will see that you can import that. So now it's basically like this. If I rebuild this, you will see that now you will have a correct image rather than the one that we were having. And now it looks like this. Now let's just run the code on an emulator for Android and hope that it looks okay. Like, to me, it looks good. It looks okay to me. And I think that's how we wanted this, right? So the first step is done. The next step is basically adding the items. But what if I want to run on iOS as well? So let's see if we can run this on iOS simulator as well and see the iOS behavior similar to what we have on Android as well. Okay, so the simulator is running, which is a good sign. Here is how it looks on Android, and now over here you can see that it's how it looks on iOS, and that is because like we have it in dark mode. So yeah, that's pretty much what we wanted, right? The next step is basically when user click on this, we show a dialog, and that dialog basically adds some stuff into the list. And I think that's something that we need to do. So let's just do that. Okay, we'll get back to our app section. Let me just get rid of all the rest of the stuff now. And like I said, the next thing that we need is a card. So for that, let's just create a package and call it model. Okay, and that is going to be the note model for us. So create a Kotlin data class and call it note. Okay, and what should it have? I think it should have a title as a string and description. So I think these are the two things that we need for the notes right now. And what else we need? We need a screen or like a composable that basically handles this. How do we do that? Do I need a separate screen? Yeah, let's just create a separate screen, separate package for that, and let's call that list items screen. Okay, now we have a list item screen. Oh my god, need to rename that. Let's call it notes. Okay, and now over here you'll create a class and list notes screen. Okay, now this is a file. Over here we'll basically create a composable function list notes screen, right? And it should contain a list of screen. I Sorry, not screen, it should be notes. Note. Okay, so like it should have something like this. It should get a list of screen from us, and that list will be displayed to the user, right? So again, like I said, what you need for this is basically it's totally your choice of how you want to draw. I'm gonna use a lazy column, since I know that basically a lazy column is something that we need over here. And a lazy column has a property that is called items, which basically takes a list or array. I have a list already, so I'm just gonna use, what is this? It's called list, right? And now inside that we'll be creating a note item. We don't have a note item, so for that we can create another composable, call it a note item, and that is gonna take this, right? And what we have, I think I'm gonna start with a box because that's something we should be doing. Modifier dot fill max width, and before that I would want some padding to be added, so perhaps a.dp of padding, and then we will basically make sure to fill the max width so that it basically takes some width. Then we'll also add again padding, some internal padding for the system to get, and that is also going to be a dps. And what else do we need? I think we need some sort of round corners to that as well, so we'll also clip that and make sure that it's basically rounded corner shape for this as well. Okay, and now inside that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a text, and that text is going to be note dot title. So that's something we need. And then we will also be adding some sort of font size to that as well. So the font size is going to take at least, I believe it should be at least 22.sps for that. And I think that's pretty much what we need right now. What we need is basically to test out how it will look. So to make sure that it looks proper, we are going to use a preview composable. So I'm going to say preview list. Okay, and now over here you will be using something like this. We'll just rebuild this, try to make sure that it basically draw that for us. Okay, we make sure, perhaps one thing I missed, fill max size, so it covers everything. And also one more functionality I believe I need as a random num color. So basically I'm going to say function get random color, and that is going to be a color for us. And then you will be using something like this, but rather than using this, I'm going to say 155 to 255, because this is basically some random color that will basically be lighter in term of color. So that's something we need. And then after the clipping, we'll be using that as background, get random color for us. Okay, perhaps that's not the case. We need to clip it first before adding the internal padding. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Now you can see it shows something like this, but let's add something. Basically, this is the first note that I want to to show to the users and like this. Okay, and this is how it will look. Perhaps you can also add some comma separated other stuff to this as well, and more. So like you can see we have different kind of color. Perhaps you can do something more. Rather than using the same color every time, you can use this so that you have different kind of colors, and every time there is some sort of a refresh, it will basically be changed, but we'll fix that. That's not a big problem. Okay, so that's something that we have. And now what we need is that we need to incorporate this list into the to the main app section over here, like over here, somewhat over here. Like if we have list items, we can show that. If not, we'll show the rest of the stuff. But for that we need some sort of other implementation, and that is basically having some sort of a data source where we can store and retrieve the data, right? We don't have that yet, so we'll basically work on that first. So the first thing is that we will be creating a new Kotlin class, call it as home view model. Okay, this is going to be a class, and this is going to be a view model, just like a Android view model that we have. And now inside over here, like basically what we need is basically we need a private state flow that is going to be private list or nodes is equals to mute, should be private wall. Okay, and that is going to be mutable state flow of list of node. Okay, and that is going to be an empty list for now. Initially it should be empty, and then the next thing is going to be nodes dot as state flow so that we can access it from the UI side. And then we need to create a function that basically add nodes to the user, to the item, and that will basically be adding this node. Now over here what we'll do is that we'll say underscore nodes dot update. Okay, and then over here we'll say it plus node, which means that basically now it's gonna update the list with one item. It will add one item into this. I think that's pretty much what we have for the view model. We definitely need to access this view model from over here, from this section. And for that, what you need is that you need a view model. So we'll basically just creating a view model. View model is equals to view model, and then over here you will using home view model for that. So basically this is basically how, if you do that, what it will do, that will stop recreating the view model again and again. It will just use the view model to create, like this model will be created through the view model, and it will make sure that it follows the life cycle of it, right? Okay, so now we have that section. Now over here what we will do is that we'll make sure that if the list is not empty, if it's not empty, we'll be using this, and we'll pass the list value to this, else we'll basically be using this. And that's basically something, or was exactly something we wanted to do. Now I'm just going to run it on the iOS first this time, and we'll see if we see any difference, or like if everything works. Okay, you can see everything is working, but we don't see any difference. It's the same screen that we had previously. Nothing changed, right? And the reason it didn't change was because we haven't actually implemented the stuff where we add items to the list. So for that, what we'll do is that we'll basically create a couple of things. Like we will be using a modal. Okay, so basically we'll be using a bottom sheet dialog for this, and that bottom sheet dialog will basically help us add items to the list, and then that list will be populated accordingly. So for that you need a couple of things. First thing is the state. So you're gonna say view model state, sorry, not view model state. So it's going to be bottom sheet state is equals to, remember bottom sheet, remember that's one thing. And it should also be asking you to opt in for the material 3 API, which is fine. Okay, that is basically an experimental API, it might change. Second thing is basically showing bottom sheet. Now basically I have done these two things. What does these two things mean? Basically we are using some sort of states. A state is basically something that helps, you know, helps populate the composable, or manage the basically composable. There are different kind of states. We'll definitely cover most of the states, but over here what happens is basically this value doesn't change every time. Like, since the composable are basically the stuff that basically recreates again and again, if you keep a state, state basically helps you maintain that value in the life cycle. And based on that you can draw or populate stuff in the screens. That's basically how why we use these. And these two values are basically the one that we, this is basically important for making sure that when we actually are supposed to show, for example, we know this is floating action button, this is the on click action. So now over here we'll basically be using this, which means now if the value is set to true, we show something. And for the other section is basically it's different. So I'm gonna go over here inside the scaffold, and I'm gonna use something as if should show bottom sheet. If it's true, that's something. And then you're gonna say modal bottom sheet. Okay, and then you're gonna say on dismiss request. So basically when it says on dismiss request, you're gonna say show bottom sheet equals to false. That's first thing. Second thing, you need basically a sheet state to be the bottom sheet for you. And then third one is going to be this section, which basically is a dialogue, or some sort of dialogue that you want to draw over here. So over here, that what we did is basically we just said on dismiss request, it should basically set that value to false, which means that basically the dialog will be now disappeared. And this shade state is something that will helps keeping the state of the bottom sheet. Now inside this section we need to create our own design to create our dialog. So for that I'm gonna use one more composable, call that function add item dialog. And over here you have a couple of callbacks that you can use. So basically on cancelled, on save you also need to pass the note for that as well. And then you need something like this. What do I miss? Okay, sorry. So basically that's something that we did. Now definitely we need some sort of a title and, you know, description for that. And then after that we need a column, and that column is supposed to have some spacing. So modifier dot padding maybe 16.dp from each side, something like this. And the next thing is basically I'm going to use color for this, and that is going to be transparent color for the container that we will be using. So I'm going to use text field colors, text field defaults dot colors, and you can say focused container color transparent unfocused container color transparent. So these are the two colors that we need. And then now what we need is basically we need a text field. Okay, text field is something that we are going to use for taking the input from the value from the user, and that is basically this. For on value change, you're going to say on value change is basically going to be title is equals to IT, and you're gonna use colors is equals to color that we have. What else? I think we need modifier to modifier dot fill max width. That's one for the title, and then we also have a text for description, although we are not showing it the description anywhere, but we'll definitely be using that. We also perhaps text font text style is equals to, okay, so I'm gonna use 22 sp for that because I want slightly bigger text size for that. And then we have this, you have min lines to be at least 5 so that it takes some, like, have some spacing. And then we have a raw, that is also important. The raw is going to create these two buttons for me, raw, okay. And these are the two buttons that we'll be using. So basically pretty much what we have, text a cancel button that is basically clickable on cancel, and on save it basically gives me a note, and that is basically the item that we are gonna use. Okay, now on cancel there's not much to do, like it's just bottom sheet state dot hide. That's one thing. And also we need to show your bottom state is equals to false. But on the other end, what we need on the save, we need our view model add note to be called. Now over here, this hide section, or like this hide, is supposed to work with only a coroutine, and for that you are gonna say coroutine scope is equals to remember coroutine scope. And now I'm gonna use this dot launch and use this inside. Now I think we have done pretty much of the work. We create a dialog that basically takes some sort of input from us, and when user inputs that, it basically, if a success case, it adds to the list, and that list should be populated based on that. There is just one thing I think we need to do, and that is this. Rather than accessing it like this, what I'm gonna say, well, nodes view model dot nodes dot collect as state with life cycle, right? And now I'm gonna say nodes dot value, and also over here we'll pass that nodes dot value into this if it's not empty. Now let's just run this again on a iOS first and see if it works as expected. Okay, we are here, clicking on that. Okay, we got some sort of a title, so I'm gonna say this is the first note that I want to add. I hope it works. In the description you can add anything, right? Now press save, and as soon as you press save, you see that we have this. Now let me just try again. Some other random stuff, you added that. You see there's two problems. One is basically the dialog is not hiding. Second is basically the color should be dark for this, like it should not be light. I think that's these are the only two things that we need to fix, and then we are good. So over here, if we go back over here in this section, we also need to make sure to hide this even after save, right? And what else? Yeah, there are some more things. For example, this text field, we also need a placeholder like this, and for that you also need font size to be 22 sp. You can do the same thing for this as well, and that is going to be description, or you can say something. The text for this should not be there. It should be similar to what there was. Okay, try again on iOS. Okay, you have this. Clicking on that, now it's much better. You can say this is my first note, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I've added a couple of things. You can see it's added. And this time I'm gonna add some random stuff with some of the description. It's there, but the text color is again the problem. I think the text color should be handled over here. You can see we have this section, and over here we need to fix that. This was the site, so you can say color, or you can say, I think, text color. It should be color, and that is going to be black for that. Okay, now try again on an iOS, and this time also on Android as well. We'll be using both. So let me just change it to Compose app. Try running that as well over here. Now try adding an item, press save. You see we have this. Try adding another item. You have this, and you see it's like working as we were expecting, right? And on Android it's also running. So for Android it's in light mode. You can see adding an item, it's working like this. So basically it's working for both Android and iOS, and it's also working as we were expecting it. In the next video, but the only, like, there's one problem. And let's say if you add anything to this, let's say I added some stuff, it's there, adding it back, it's there. But let's say if I close the app and get back, sorry, not by this, like if I close the app properly and get back, you see you don't have anything, and that is the problem. So we need to fix that. And the problem to fix that, the solution to fix that is basically to incorporate some sort of, local database into this, which is going to be the next part of this project. And yeah, in the next project we are going to work with room database in Compose Multiplatform, using room for the app, which basically we can store all these notes. And the third video would be to incorporating some sort of remote mechanism, and also deleting functionality for this project. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. I'll see you in the next video, in which we will implement room database. Till then, happy coding. Bye bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon so you don't forget any update. If you got any question, you can join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Also, for quick updates and tips, you can follow me on Instagram. Until next time, keep learning, keep developing. Bye.